And then you had a recent testimony before the committee regarding this. Can you tell us about how that went? Are folks receptive to the pushback that are getting from you and the other Bitcoin mining advocates?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's going around Twitter. It was kind of a funny thing because we testify frequently at these policy initiative hearings. As a matter of fact, we have about 8 different bills that found a sponsor. The Texas Blockchain Council helped um, to put forth. And so it wasn't the first time that the Texas Blockchain Council was at one of these hearings. But this is a bill that is against our industry, where the other ones are in support of them. And the way that these bills work, it's a little committee hearing, there's 10 people there, and then if it gets out of committee, then it goes to vote in the Senate, and then if it passes there, it'll go to the House and through the committee, vote in the House, and then it has to make it through the governor's desk. So with this bill, we learned about it the day it was filed, and we already had a war room with our Bitcoin miners and said, do you want us to try and kill this quietly? Or would you like us to make a big stink about it? And we, at that time, decided, well, we can use the leverage that we have and hopefully get our allies to just sit on it so that it never becomes law, and then we don't have to talk about it much. But but the news got a hold of it, and so it kind of blew it out of proportion in some ways. But so I was speaking in Miami the night before, and I was going back and forth about whether or not to be there. And I decided at the last minute to fly in early in the morning, and I was just going to watch Lee Bratcher, our president, kind of do his stuff. He does this all the time, and I was going to be there to support him. So I was a little bit sleep deprived, and I arrived at 1 in the morning, and I got there, and they were rushing through. They have several bills that they address in those hearings, and they were rushing through them. And so when I was there, nobody else was there yet. So Lee hadn't arrived yet. Pierre Rochard with Riot wasn't there yet. And so I was like, oh my gosh, there's nobody here. And Lee's like, why don't you sign us all up? And then why don't you go ahead and testify, just in case we're not there. So I signed up, but I did not have prepared remarks like the rest of my coworkers did. So I just was listening to the points that they were making and trying to address some of them. So it wasn't my best, but it was just good to have voices there. So, and then happily the rest of the team arrived just in time, so we were all able to address the concerns. But unfortunately, it did get voted out of that committee unanimously. And part of that, the dynamics in the Texas Senate are different than the dynamics in the Texas House, and the senators are very loyal to one another. They're around longer, and the sponsor of the bill felt strongly about it, and so it was passed out of that. Nobody wanted to spend the political capital to oppose it, but at this point, we're still not so worried about it. There's lots of places along the way where it could get stalled. But that was that particular instance, was that hearing. We testified, but it passed out. And next, on Wednesday, it'll go to the Senate for a vote. We expect it to pass, because that's just how the Senate is. But then once it gets to the House, it may actually be dead on arrival, or, there's several different steps along the way that we can push back against it.
It's good to know that there's still layers and it has to go up and it could get stopped, and the fight is not over yet, even though it went through this committee.